Hello friends, welcome to Kotteedu. So let us continue our discussion on the topic sustainable development. So last time we looked into the various Millennium Development Goals, the evolution of Millennium Development Goals, and how the implementation and the various outcomes of the Millennium Development Goals have led to culminated into development of the Sustainable Development Goals. So now let us look into the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, which is called as the Rio +20 Summit. It took place in the year 2012. This could be an important question for you. So the concept of sustainable development as such, the goals, was born at the Rio +20 Summit. Okay, so we could expect a question over here, so please be alert. The objective was to produce a set of universally applicable goals. So these sustainable development goals shall be applicable to all countries of the world. And these goals shall balance three dimensions of sustainable development. What are those three dimensions? Generally, the basic understanding of development, usually we think that it is economic development. So you know what is economic development? Economic development is the exploitation of resources, human, natural, various kind of resources to produce economic goods and services. So when there is growth, it is called economic growth, and the process of extraction and exploitation of various resources is called economic development. So as we already know by now that economic development is not the only goal of humans. Of late it has been realized that sustainable development, which also includes inclusive development and inclusive growth models, has been the prime mode of development the world over since the past few decades. So sustainable development basically, as I told you, is to look into the development needs of the present generations without compromising on the development needs of the future generations. Okay, so that is about sustainable development. For example, you have 10 trees, okay, and you're producing timber from these 10 trees, and you're also using water for the paper industry and the timber industry. Okay, so you're using 10 ponds for this, okay, and you're using 10 trees for this, okay, but for how long can you continue this? After many years, these 10 trees might extinguish, these water resources might extinguish if you indiscriminately exploit these resources. So once you have extinguished these resources, you do not have the resources to carry out the development, the further development, and your future generations cannot undertake various meaningful development processes. So that is why the concept of sustainable development came into play, and also the concept of inclusive development. So what does sustainable development do? It is nothing new, but the thing is, you are expanding the horizons of the erstwhile development process by stating that you will undertake efficient methods of exploitation. So that is, you are exploiting these 10 trees, true. Now also you would exploit these trees, but you would be very careful, very rational, okay, and you would see to it that you carry out the development processes, the production process of timber in an efficient way. That is, you might use only 5 trees. The other 5 trees were being wastefully exploited earlier. With the use of new technology, with the use of efficient modes of production, you would be making the development process sustainable. Okay, that is a basic understanding of sustainable development. So what does this do? It takes into consideration the environmental concerns. That is, the environmental concerns, as I told you, like the various resources, the trees, the water resources, okay, the air shall not be polluted, you know, there should be less pollution of the air, and various mineral resources which are exploited from the ground should be done in a very, you know, careful manner. So all these things take into consideration the environmental concerns, and you already know all the development process that we are taking part in. It is for the economic development, for more growth, for generating more income. Okay, and then there is a social development. Okay, the social dimension states that sustainable development is such kind of development model which caters to the needs not only of the rich, okay, but it also takes into the needs of the poor, the vulnerable, the marginalized sections like the tribals, the scheduled castes, the women, the people who depend on forests, the traditional forest dwellers. Okay, so all the sections in the society, like everyone in the society, everyone's needs are taken care of in this model of sustainable development. This is the basic premise of sustainable development. So if anybody asks you whether sustainable, if taking care of only economic development leads to sustainable development, the answer is no. Sustainable development takes into account the various social, environmental and economic dimensions. It is a concomitant, it is a synergy of all the three, and that is called as sustainable development. So the Rio +20 summit committed the United Nations member states, all the UN members, okay, to develop a set of sustainable development goals and targets, as well as some indicators. Why do we need these indicators? These indicators so that we would know whether we have achieved the various goals of sustainable development, whether the development process that we are undertaking, is it being taken up in a sustainable and equitable manner. Okay. So the task of preparing the sustainable development goals was assigned to the Intergovernmental Open Working Group of the United Nations General Assembly. So you have to again remember that the UNGA, that is the United Nations General Assembly Working Group, has taken up the task of enumerating various sustainable development goals. So why did this sustainable development concept come into play? It is because the Millennium Development Goals could not achieve the level of objectives that were desired. So that is why we have enlarged the scope of Millennium Development Goals and led to the evolution of Sustainable Development Goals. So there are three basic interlinkages that underpin the sustainable development model. So what are these three basic interlinkages? Let us have a look into this. The three basic interlinkages are to leave no one behind. Okay, no one shall be left behind. As I already told you, it is a concept which also includes the dimension of inclusive growth model. So all sections of the society, all sections, all countries, all races, all ethnicities, all kinds of people shall benefit from the development model, irrespective of their caste, class, creed, religion, etc. And this sustainable development model also wants to secure a life of dignity for all. All people should have the right to dignity. Even our constitution under Article 21A states that every citizen shall enjoy the right to dignity. Okay, so how can this be achieved? It is through access to various services. Okay, basic services shall be provided by the governments all over the world, and the access to a clean environment, the nature that we live in, should be maintained in its puritanical form. Pollution should be reduced, pollution should be minimized, the adverse effects of pollution shall be mitigated. So this is one of the premise. And the second premise is equity and prosperity within life supporting systems. Equity is all the people, all sections of the society, the poor, rich, everyone should be treated in an equitable manner. Everyone enjoys a sustainable and healthy environment. So the growth model should be limiting the environmental degradation. It should limit, it should end, it should minimize the environmental degradation process. As we already know that the development model that we undertook has led to depletion of wide natural resources like trees, forests, ponds, ecosystems, okay, it has polluted the air, okay, all these things should be minimized, and increase the capital for greater resilience and intergovernmental equity. That is, it is nothing but various governments of the countries, various countries should come in together and they should cooperate, they should fund, they should transfer technology to each other. The rich countries should help the poor countries by transferring financial resources. So by this way, efficiency, durability, restoration and knowledge can be enhanced. That is about the interlinkages of sustainable development. So in the Rio Plus 20, the member countries, the United Nations member countries have accepted to the Sustainable Development Goals. So these goals are based on Agenda 21. Okay, you know Agenda 21. It is part of the climate change negotiations, and it is part of the Rio Plus 20 summit, which states about Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is one of the protocol, one of the agenda that emphasizes the concept of sustainable development. Okay, the development model should be taken up in a sustainable manner. That is one of the premise of Agenda 21. And also the Johannesburg Plan of Implementation should also be achieved through the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, so just try to remember Agenda 21 and Johannesburg Plan of Implementation. These seek to achieve Sustainable Development Goals. And the document also called for fully respecting the Rio principles. The Rio Earth Summit, as we already know the history of it, so this document also said that the principles should be respected. And it also said that all the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals should be in tune with realization of the international laws and rights. So before the actual document of Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations Working Group has released a document called Zero Draft. The Zero Draft on Sustainable Development Goals is a draft containing the various Sustainable Development Goals. Okay. So this draft was emancipated by the United Nations Working Group. So later on, this draft was put into discussion in the United Nations. Various countries of the world have deliberated upon this draft. They have raised some issues, some have suggested some modifications, some have accepted the draft, and finally the Sustainable Development Goals were adopted, okay, in the year 2015, in September 2015. Okay, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, and the Zero Draft was enumerated on July 2014. Okay. So what were the various focus areas that the United Nations Working Group focused on regarding Sustainable Development Goals? The main focus areas are poverty reduction, okay, to reduce the world poverty, food security and nutrition. It was only if all the people, especially the poor people of the world, have access to basic food necessities, they can enjoy a nutritious meal. Only if they can be healthy can the world prosper. Okay. And it also focused on various marine resources, like the various animals that live in the oceans, the fishes, the various plants, the phytoplankton that are part of the oceanic ecosystem, the coral reefs. All these things should be protected so that the world is progressing in a sustainable manner, and environmental concerns are also taken into consideration. And education is one of the focus areas. And as we already know, sustainable consumption and sustainable production, the consumption patterns, like we are the people who are consuming products, so even we should be very cautious, and we should act in a very rational manner, that we do not exploit resources in an indiscriminate manner. We should consume them with a sense. Okay, and even the production pattern should be sustainable. And it focuses on climate, sustainable cities and settlements. Like in India also, we are coming up with the concept of smart cities, which also takes into consideration the sustainable development paradigm. Okay, it also focuses on promoting equality, industrialization, which is sustainable development of infrastructure, so that all people have access to basic infrastructural facilities like houses, education, primary schools, hospitals, etc., roads, etc. Energy, we are talking about green energy. Until now, we have got energy through thermal resources, like through exploitation of coal and various other non-renewable sources of energy. But now we are focusing on renewable sources of energy like solar energy, wind energy. Okay, nuclear energy is one of the clean energies. So all these things are focused upon. Economic growth should also be there. It is important. Okay, it is only if we have economic growth that we can have some income, we can have progress. And focus on ecosystems and biodiversity, gender equality and women's empowerment, water and sanitation, okay, peaceful and non-violent societies, and capable institutions. Because if there is violence, if there are wars taking place in the society, then obviously our development achievements will be going waste. Because when there is a war taking place, a lot of destruction takes place, a lot of infrastructure is destroyed, a lot of human lives are lost, a lot of environment, a lot of forests, ecosystems are destroyed. So all these things will lead to regression. So that is why we need a peaceful and non-violent society. And then we should also focus on employment and decent work for all. And this focus should be also on the needs of implementation, health and population dynamics. So the zero draft includes a set of 17 goals and 169 targets. Okay, these 17 goals and 169 targets are to be achieved by the year 2030. Okay, from the year 2015 that we have proposed these targets, we seek to achieve the sustainable development goals by the year 2030. So sustainable development goals have a target from the year 2050 to 2030 for 15 years. In these 15 years, we should achieve these 17 goals as well as 169 targets. Please remember this. So the list also includes a reworking of the 8 Millennium Development Goals, which we already know the 8 Millennium Development Goals. These Millennium Development Goals also are being continued as well as they are expanded. Okay, as you already know, the Millennium Development Goals are to expire in the year 2015. So because they have expired in 2015, we have come up with Sustainable Development Goals. Apart from the Millennium Development Goals, new goals have also been proposed under SDGs related to water and sanitation, affordable energy, safer cities, climate change, and related to sustainable development. So what are the various goals regarding sustainable development goals? Now let us look into each of the 17 sustainable development goals. Okay, the goal 1 is more or less related to the Millennium Development Goal 1. Here it is to end poverty in all its forms everywhere. In the Millennium Development Goals, the target was to reduce poverty by 50%. Okay, but here we have a wider target, that is to end poverty everywhere in all its forms. Okay, so please remember this goal. And the second goal is to end hunger. So how can you end hunger? It is through achieving food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. So it focuses on ending hunger. ensure a healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. So it promotes healthy lives. Okay, so all kinds of people, the young, the old, the middle-aged, okay, all these people have to be taken into consideration, and the various governments of the world have to see to it that they are having a healthy life. Okay, and the sustainable development goal number 4, it focuses to ensure inclusive and equitable quality of education. So it is related to education. The third goal is related to health. Okay, the fourth goal is related to education, that is, which is inclusive, which is equitable, and the teaching process should not end only with schooling or college. It should be a lifelong process. Only then the citizens can be an effective human resource. Only then effective skills can be taken up. Only then can we achieve sustainable development. And the goal number 5 is to achieve gender equality. Gender equality, that is, you have to bring down the disparities between males and females, okay, and to empower women and girls. How can you bring down the disparity? The disparity is brought down by empowering, by making the girls and women employed, giving them meaningful employment, giving them proper education, okay, taking care of their health. By doing all this, we would achieve the gender equality. That is the goal number 5. And the goal number 6 is to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation. Water and sanitation for all. So while we are looking at each goals, you should not try to memorize all of them. You just get an idea. First give a reading and then just focus on the keywords. Okay, like for example, you can have some mnemonics. Okay, for example, the sustainable development goal 3 states about health, and 4th states about education, and 1 is due to poverty, and 2 is related to hunger. So you just make a mind map in your head that a poor person who doesn't have food, okay, he is looking for, he is also sick, so he needs some health facilities, and he also needs some education, and this poor person is a woman. Okay, just try to have this mind map, and whenever you look at in this sequence, you will obviously get sustainable development goals, poor person, so end poverty, and the second goal is to end hunger, because the poor person is hungry, and this person is hungry, even she is ill, so she needs proper health, and then she needs education to survive, to earn a living, and then after she gets education, she might get gender empowerment. So remember in this sequence. Okay, and then water, goal number 6 is related to water and sanitation, and the goal number 7 is to ensure sustainable energy, modern energy. Like you know, still in many of the villages we have people taking up energy requirements through kerosene lamps. Okay, lot of villages do not have proper electrification, so that is why this goal number 7 has been enacted, which focuses on access to affordable, reliable and sustainable modern energy for all. And goal number 8 is to promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Okay, it focuses inclusive and sustainable economic growth. It also focuses on employment and decent work for all. And goal number 9 focuses on building resilient infrastructure and to promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. So the keywords are innovation, infrastructure, inclusive and industrialization. This is about goal number 9. And goal number 10 deals with reducing inequality within the countries and among countries. So inequality should be reduced. Like in India, you have regional disparities. One state is rich, one state is poor, okay? And also, in the global context, some countries are rich, some countries are poor. So this should also be reduced according to the Sustainable Development Goals. Okay? And that was goal number 10. And goal number 11 focuses on making cities and human settlements sustainable and inclusive, safe and resilient. Okay, you know, a lot of cities are ridden with crime, poverty, explosion of slums, okay, pollution, environmental degradation. So all this can be reduced by implementing the goal number 11 of Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, and goal number 12 focuses on ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns, which I already told you. Goal number 13 focuses on climate change. That is, you need to take some action, immediate action, to mitigate the effects of climate change and bring down the adverse effects of climate change. And goal number 14 focuses on conserving and sustainably using the various oceanic, marine resources and seas. Okay, that is about goal number 14. Okay, so now let us look into goal number 15. The goal number 15 is to protect terrestrial ecosystems sustainably and manage forests, combat desertification and halt the loss of biodiversity. So goal number 14 was related to marine resources, whereas goal number 15 is related to biodiversity and terrestrial ecosystems. Okay. Goal number 16 is to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. Peaceful and inclusive, and to provide access to justice and build effective, accountable and inclusive institutions at all levels. So this goal number 16 focuses on justice, okay, and peaceful societies. The goal number 17 is to revitalize. I already told you the final goal is for global economic cooperation to achieve these sustainable development goals. How do we achieve? We need some financial resources, we need some technological resources, we need to build capacity, we need to build skills, we need to develop human resources, we need to take up effective trade, free trade. By doing all this, we can achieve sustainable development goals. So that was about the 17 sustainable development goals. So what is the difference, the in principle difference between Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals? I already told you there's no substantial difference, but the thing is Millennium Development Goals have been expanded. So Sustainable Development Goals are broader than Millennium Development Goals, which all these SDGs include MDGs, but they have been expanded more. MDGs have been expanded, and these are called Sustainable Development Goals. So that is all, that is what is mentioned over here. That is a wider range of goals. And one important thing is Millennium Development Goals were not solely, they did not have a major focus on socio-political agenda, and you know, and even the Sustainable Development Goals are not just focused on environmental concerns. So both the approaches involve similar ideas, that is, they take into the economic concerns, environmental concerns, social concerns, both of them take into consideration, but SDGs are wider and broader. But one basic thing, like a principle of difference, is The difference in the principle is Millennium Development Goals basically focused on improving the living conditions of the poorest people, but Sustainable Development Goals the main concerns of SDGs are in shaping development in a sustainable manner. So it consists of a number of manageable goals that are easy to understand, measurable, and they have a specific deadline. Okay, Millennium Development Goals were to an extent a bit vague, they were not specific, but Sustainable Development Goals have overcome such challenges. The various challenges in Millennium Development Goals we have already looked into. So by overcoming these challenges, Sustainable Development Goals were proposed. So SDGs are more comprehensive, as I already told you. They are outcome oriented rather than just outputs. What are the outcomes? For example, you have put certain targets for education. Fine, you have achieved those targets. But what are the outcomes? Whether a child who is educated is able to enjoy a decent standard of living, whether the child is having a better employment opportunity, okay, whether is living a healthy life, all these things are outcomes. What is the impact on society as a whole? Okay. And also SDGs are country specific. They have also given country specific targets. Okay. So how can Sustainable Development Goals be effectively implemented? So for effective implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, you need proper fund transfers. Financial resources should be available to the poorer countries especially. So the rich countries should transfer financial resources to the poor countries. They should even transfer technological resources like latest technologies, like clean environmental technologies. Such technologies are available with the rich countries and the developed countries. So they have to help the poorer countries. There should be regional integration, there should be globalization, the growth model should be inclusive, okay, skills should be developed, and even environment should be improved, okay, pollution level should be brought down, forest cover should be improved, water resources should be protected, okay, various wildlife and biodiversity should be protected. All these things should be taken place for effective implementation of Sustainable Development Goals. And the various governments should also evolve budgets in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, that is the Sustainable Development budgets for the post 2015 agenda. The United Nations, through the annual reports of the Secretary General, also have an overview about the implementation of the various Sustainable Development Goals. So they monitor the various Sustainable Development Goals, whether they are being implemented by the various countries. Okay. And there is also a digital divide between various countries, various regions within a country. Okay, like in India also, in urban areas the digital literacy is high, but in rural areas there is low level of digital literacy, low network connectivity. All these problems are there. So this digital divide should be bridged. So when this digital divide is bridged, we can have a sustainable and meaningful development. For example, why do we need to bridge this digital divide? In India, you have various subsidies being given by the government, but you do not have proper enforcement and monitoring mechanism. But when you have proper financial inclusion, okay, you have proper access to banks for the poor people, okay, then the money from the government can be directly transferred into the poor people's bank accounts. Okay, so in that way the various corruptions, the middlemen, all this thing can be avoided and leakages can be plugged. So for that you need digital literacy, financial inclusion, all these things. So all these things will lead to sustainable development. Okay, so access to information is essential to achieve the sustainable development, and as I already told you, technology transfer is also important. And for this reason, even foreign direct investment is very important to achieve long-term economic and sustainable development growth. So now let us look into the important part, that is India and sustainable development goals. So starting from the 10th 5-year plan, actually various Indian 5-year plans, especially from the 10th 5-year plan, have focused on